Don't bother coming to Mom's birthday. We already have enough people, my brother said. That night, I sent a delivery truck to the restaurant. Inside, a cake taller than him, with my name across it. The phone buzzed on the polished surface of my vanity, a harsh, insistent vibration against the wood. I was halfway through my makeup, one eye perfectly lined, the other still bare. It was my mother's 70th birthday, a milestone that felt both monumental and surreal, and I had spent a small fortune on a dress that was currently hanging in a protective bag on my closet door, shimmering under the light. My brother Mark, his name flashing on the screen. I smiled, assuming he was calling to coordinate our arrival times at the restaurant. I tapped the screen, bringing the phone to my ear. Hey you, I said, my voice bright. Almost ready. I was just debating whether the gold heels are too much. A beat of silence. Not the warm, familiar silence of a sibling gathering their thoughts, but a cold, dead air that made the fine hairs on my arms stand up. Chloe, he said, and the way he spoke my name was flat, devoid of any warmth. It was the voice he used when he was delivering bad news on behalf of his wife, Diana. Listen, about tonight. My stomach tightened. I put the eyeliner down, my hand suddenly unsteady. What about tonight? I asked, my voice losing its cheer. Is Mom okay? Did something happen? No, Mom's fine. She's already at the restaurant with Diana. He paused, and I could hear the faint clinking of glasses in the background, the low murmur of a crowd. They were already there. They had started without me. A familiar bitter ache bloomed in my chest. Look, Chloe, this is awkward, but Diana and we were just talking, and we think it's best if you don't come. The words hung in the air, so absurd, so utterly unbelievable that for a moment I thought it was a joke, a cruel, terrible joke, but a joke nonetheless. What are you talking about, Mark? It's Mom's 70th birthday. I have her gift right here. I've been planning for this for months. My voice was rising, a tremor of panic and rage running through it. I know, he said, his tone placating, dismissive, but things are just tense with you right now. You've been very emotional lately. Diana is worried you'll make a scene. We want Mom to have a peaceful, happy night. No drama. Emotional. The word was a weapon. One Diana had been sharpening and using against me for years, ever since I had the audacity to seek therapy for anxiety after my divorce. To her, my vulnerability was not a sign of strength, but a defect, a character flaw she could point to whenever she wanted to discredit me. And Mark, my own brother, just stood by and handed her the ammunition. A scene? I whispered, the words catching in my throat. I'm not the one who makes scenes, Mark. Diana is. You know that. That's not fair, Chloe, he snapped, his defensiveness flaring. Diana is just trying to protect Mom. She organized this whole party. She's been running herself ragged. And honestly, we already have enough people. The table is full. We already have enough people. The finality of it, the casual cruelty was like a physical blow. I was not just an inconvenience, I was surplus, unnecessary, an extra chair that couldn't be squeezed in. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, the one finished eye, the other pale and naked. I looked like a half-finished person, a project someone had abandoned. It felt fitting. For years, Diana had been systematically erasing me from our family. One passive-aggressive comment, one forgotten invitation, one twisted narrative at a time. This was just the culmination of her work. She had finally succeeded in painting me as the unstable, dramatic sister, the one who was better left out for the sake of the family's peace. Tears welled, hot and stinging, but I refused to let them fall. I would not give him the satisfaction of hearing me cry. I took a deep, shuddering breath, my mind racing. Rage, pure and cold, began to solidify over the raw wound of his betrayal. He thought I was emotional. He thought I would make a scene. He thought I would just meekly accept my exclusion and dissolve into a puddle of tears. He, and by extension Diana, had made a grave miscalculation. They had pushed me one step too far. They had mistaken my patience for weakness. Okay, I said, my voice eerily calm. The sudden shift in my tone seemed to unnerve him. Okay, Mark, I understand. You do? He sounded relieved, the tension draining from his voice. Good. That's great, Chloe. It's just for the best, you know? We'll celebrate with you and Mom another time. Just the three of us. Lies. All of it. There would be no other time. This was not a postponement. It was an excommunication. Of course, I said, the words tasting like ash. You're right. It's for the best. Tell Mom I love her and that I'm sorry I couldn't make it. Tell her I'm not feeling well. I gave him the excuse he wanted. The lie that would make him feel like a good brother, a caring son. Will do. Thanks for being so understanding, Chloe. Really, it means a lot. He hung up. I stared at the black screen of my phone for a full minute, my knuckles white as I gripped it. The silence of my apartment pressed in on me. The shimmering dress seemed to mock me from the closet. The gift for my mother, a beautiful, custom-made photo album of her life, sat on my bed, a testament to a love I was now forbidden from expressing. Understanding? Oh, I was understanding. I understood perfectly. I understood that my brother was a coward. I understood that his wife was a malevolent narcissist, and I understood that this was war. My Uncle Ben's voice startled me. Everything all right, kiddo? He was standing in the doorway of my bedroom, holding 2 mugs of tea. He'd come over to ride to the party with me, a quiet show of solidarity he'd been offering more and more lately, as if he sensed the growing rift. He must have heard the entire conversation. His face, usually so jovial, was etched with concern, and a quiet fury I recognized as his protective instinct kicking in. I shook my head, a single tear finally escaping and tracing a clean path through my foundation. They uninvited me, I said, my voice cracking. Mark said, he said the table was full. Uncle Ben set the mugs down with a deliberate, heavy heavy thud. He didn't say I'm sorry or offer empty platitudes. He just looked at me, his eyes dark with anger on my behalf. That woman, he said, his voice a low growl. That poisonous woman, and Mark letting her. He walked over and wrapped his strong arms around me. I buried my face in his shoulder and finally let out the sob I had been holding back. He just held me, letting me cry it out, his presence a solid, unwavering anchor in my swirling storm of grief and rage. After a few moments, I pulled back, wiping my eyes. The grief was still there, a heavy weight in my chest, but the rage was sharpening into a fine, pointed needle of purpose. They wanted me to be invisible. They wanted to celebrate my mother's life while pretending I wasn't a part of it. Fine, I would give them something they couldn't ignore. Something that would announce my presence so loudly it would shake the very foundations of their curated little party. I'm not going to let her win, I said, my voice low and determined. I looked at my uncle. I'm not going to let them erase me. He nodded, a grim smile touching his lips. What are you thinking, Chloe? My mind was already working, formulating a plan born of pure, unadulterated defiance. They wanted drama? I would give them theater. They're at the Gilded Spoon, right? The private room? I asked, already pulling up my laptop. Yeah, Diana's been bragging about it for weeks. Booked it 6 months ago. Good. I found what I was looking for. A high-end, slightly eccentric bakery famous for its over-the-top custom creations, and most importantly, its 24/7 rush delivery service. Their motto was, if you can dream it, we can bake it, and get it there yesterday. I clicked on their emergency contact number. What are you doing? Uncle Ben asked, peering over my shoulder. I'm sending my mother a birthday present, I said, a wild, sharp smile spreading across my face. It felt strange on my tear-stained skin. Something from me. Something they can't hide in a closet or pretend they forgot to open. A man with a harried but confident voice answered the phone. Midnight Cakes. You dream it, we bake it. This is Julian. You got a sweet tooth emergency? I do, I said, my voice steady and clear. A big one. I need a cake delivered to the Gilded Spoon restaurant in the next 90 minutes. It's for a 70th birthday party. 90 minutes is tight, but for the right price, we can make miracles happen. What are we talking? Size? Flavor? Design? I looked at my uncle, the plan solidifying in my mind. Mark had said the table was full. He had said I was too much. I was about to show him what too much really looked like. How tall can you make it? I asked. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Excuse me? A cake. How tall can you make a cake on such short notice? I could hear him typing. Well, our structural integrity guarantee gets a little shaky over 5 feet without proper prep time. We have a 5.5-foot base frame for our divorce party extravaganza cake. We could probably repurpose that. It'll be mostly scaffolding and fondant, but it'll be impressive. My brother Mark is 5 feet 10 inches tall. I want it taller than him, I thought, a spark of vicious glee igniting within me. Make it 6 feet tall, I said. As tall as a man. I don't care what it's made of. It just needs to be huge. Obscenely, ridiculously huge. 6 feet. Okay, a monument. I like it. What's the theme? Vindication, I wanted to say. Instead, I said, it should be elegant, white and gold, and across the front in big, beautiful script, I wanted to say, Happy 70th birthday, Mom. All my love, Chloe. There was a whistle on the other end of the line. That's a statement piece right there. 6 feet tall, white and gold, 90 minutes. It's going to cost you a fortune. I don't care, I said, pulling out my credit card. I had been saving for a vacation, a trip to Italy to eat pasta, and forget the slow-motion implosion of my family. This felt like a much better use of the money. Just make it happen. I gave him the details, the address, my mother's name, and my credit card number. As I read the numbers aloud, my hand didn't shake. I felt a profound, exhilarating sense of control. For years, I had been playing defense, absorbing Diana's subtle digs, trying to manage Mark's spinelessness, twisting myself into knots to keep the peace. No more. This was my first offensive move. It was petty, yes. It was extravagant, but it was also a declaration of my existence. I was here. I was their family, and I would not be deleted. After I hung up, Uncle Ben looked at me, his eyes wide. Then he threw his head back and laughed, a deep booming sound that filled the quiet apartment. A 6-foot cake, he choked out, wiping a tear from his eye. Oh, kiddo, that is the most brilliantly insane thing I have ever heard. I wish I could be a fly on the wall when that monstrosity arrives. Me too, I admitted, a genuine smile finally reaching my eyes. We sat there for a moment, the two of us, in the wreckage of my evening plans. The half-done makeup, the useless party dress, the ungiven gift, but the air was no longer thick with despair. It was buzzing with anticipation. I had taken their cruelty and spun it into a spectacle. I had no idea what would happen when the cake arrived, what fresh hell Diana would unleash in retaliation. But for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a contender. The 90 minutes passed in a state of suspended animation. Uncle Ben and I drank our now cold tea and talked about everything and nothing, carefully avoiding the topic of my mother, of Mark, of the gaping wound in our family. We were in the eye of the hurricane, a pocket of strange calm before the storm I had just summoned descended upon the Gilded Spoon. My phone remained silent. I imagined the scene, the laughter, the toasts, my mother smiling, perhaps with a flicker of sadness in her eyes as she wondered where I was, a sadness Diana would be quick to soothe with another lie. Chloe's not feeling well, but she sends her love. Then, my phone lit up. It was a text from the delivery driver. Package is at the door. They're not letting us in the private room. Manager is involved. My heart hammered against my ribs. Uncle Ben leaned in, reading the screen over my shoulder. Here we go, he murmured. I pictured it. 2 delivery guys in flour-dusted uniforms, wrestling a monolithic cake through the elegant lobby of one of the city's most pretentious restaurants. The sheer absurdity of it was intoxicating. The manager, probably a man named Jean-Pierre with a pencil-thin mustache, would be horrified. Diana would be mortified. It was perfect. A few minutes later, another text. Manager got the party host. Woman is furious. Says she didn't order it. We showed her the inscription. She's making a call. My phone began to ring. The caller ID was Mark's, but I knew who would be on the other end of the line. I took a deep breath, my hand hovering over the screen. I pressed the record button on a secondary app before I answered. It was something my therapist, Dr. Sharma, had suggested I do after I described Diana's habit of twisting conversations. Document everything, she'd said. Create a record. It's for your own sanity. I had never done it before. Tonight felt different. Tonight, I needed a witness. I answered the call and put it on speaker. Hello? I said, my voice neutral. What did you do? The voice was not Mark's. It was Diana, her voice a low, venomous hiss. It was the voice I knew from behind closed doors, the one she never used in front of my mother or the rest of the family. This was the real Diana. I have no idea what you're talking about, I said calmly, glancing at Uncle Ben, whose eyes were wide. Don't you play dumb with me, you pathetic little drama queen, she snarled. The sound of the party was louder now, a backdrop of confused murmuring. There is a 6-foot slab of sugar and spite in the lobby of this restaurant with your name on it. You just couldn't stand it, could you? You couldn't stand one night, just one night, not being the center of attention. It's a birthday cake, I said, my voice still even. For my mother, from her daughter. Is there a problem? A problem? She shrieked, her voice cracking with fury. You have humiliated me. You have ruined this entire night. I have spent months planning a perfect, elegant party for your mother, and you send this circus attraction to make a mockery of it, to make a mockery of me. The party was to celebrate Mom, Diana, I reminded her gently. Not you. That was it. The flimsy dam of her composure burst, and a torrent of pure, undiluted poison came pouring through the phone. You think this is about your mother? You are so naive. This is about order. It's about decency. It's about a family that was perfectly fine before you fell apart. I have spent 7 years trying to clean up your messes, trying to protect this family from your endless neediness, your instability. I have worked so hard to create a calm, stable environment for Mark, for your mother, and you just keep trying to drag everyone back into your chaos. It was all there. The confession, laid bare in a fit of narcissistic rage. She wasn't protecting my mother from me. She was protecting the family she had curated from the one authentic member left. I was a loose thread, and she had been trying to snip me off for years. I am the one holding this family together, she screamed, her voice hoarse. I am the one who makes sure your mother is cared for. I am the one who convinced Mark to finally stand up to you, to set a boundary, to stop letting you drain the life out of him. I have told everyone for years how difficult you are, how manipulative you can be with your little sad stories and your anxiety. I have worked tirelessly to manage your reputation, to keep you at a safe distance so you can't hurt anyone else. And this is how you repay me? By trying to upstage me with a giant tacky cake? My blood ran cold. She had said it. She had admitted to a long-term, calculated campaign of character assassination. She had proudly confessed to turning my own brother against me, to poisoning the family well, all under the guise of caring for them. My uncle was staring at the phone, his face a mask of pale, stunned fury. He was hearing it now, too. The truth, straight from the serpent's mouth. So what? I said, my voice barely a whisper. You told Mark to uninvite me tonight? Of course I did, she spat. It was the only way to guarantee a peaceful evening. We all know you can't be trusted. You'd have come in here, made some passive-aggressive comment, cried in a corner to get attention, and made the entire night about you. I did what was necessary. I made the hard choice for the good of the family. And you know what? It was working. We were having a wonderful time until your monument to narcissism showed up. I felt a strange, dizzying detachment, as if I were floating above my own body. The pain was immense, a crushing weight, but beneath it was a sliver of ice-cold clarity. This recording. This was everything. This was the proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't imagining the subtle slights, the gaslighting, the campaign of isolation. It was real. She had just gift-wrapped her evil and handed it to me. You have a choice to make, Chloe, she said, her voice dropping to a menacing purr. You can have the delivery boys take that monstrosity away, and you can call your mother tomorrow and apologize for your behavior. Or I will make sure that by the time I am done with you, not a single person in this family will ever speak to you again. I will tell them you threatened me. I will tell them you had a psychotic break. Do you understand me? I will burn your life to the ground. And then she hung up. The silence that followed was heavier than anything I had ever known. It was the silence of a bomb detonating. I looked at the phone in my hand. It was no longer just a device for communication. It was a weapon. It was my vindication. I slowly, deliberately saved the recording. Uncle Ben finally moved. He sank into the armchair opposite me, his face ashen. I knew she was a piece of work, he said, his voice rough. But that is evil, Chloe. Pure, calculated evil. I nodded, unable to speak. The adrenaline that had fueled my cake-ordering bravado was gone, replaced by a profound, bone-deep exhaustion and a grief so vast it felt like it might swallow me whole. My own brother. He hadn't just been weak. He had been a willing participant. He'd let his wife convince him that his sister, the person he'd grown up with, was a threat to be managed and contained. What do we do now? Uncle Ben asked softly. I thought of Diana's threat. I will burn your life to the ground. She would too. She had the will, the cunning, and the family's trust, which she had so carefully cultivated. I had one recording. It felt like bringing a single stone to a gunfight, but it was my stone, and it was the truth. "We fight back," I said, the words feeling foreign and powerful on my tongue. "Not with cakes, not with petty drama. We do this the right way." I unlocked my phone again, my fingers moving stiffly. I didn't search for another bakery. I searched for the best defamation lawyer in the state. The next morning, I woke up with a trauma hangover. My head throbbed, my body ached, and the events of the previous night played on a loop in my mind, each replay twisting the knife a little deeper. My phone was a minefield of notifications. Dozens of missed calls and texts from Mark. A single cold text from my mother. "We need to talk, call me." And a slew of messages on the family group chat, which I couldn't bring myself to open. I knew what they would say. They would be echoes of Diana's narrative. Chloe had a meltdown. Chloe ruined Mom's birthday. Poor Diana. She tries so hard. I ignored them all. I made an appointment with the top-rated lawyer my search had produced, a man named Arthur Harrison. His website described him as a specialist in complex interpersonal litigation with a reputation for being a shark. It was exactly what I needed. His office was in a sleek, intimidating glass tower downtown. Walking into the lobby felt like stepping into a different world, one governed by rules, evidence, and consequences. Mr. Harrison was a tall, impeccably dressed man in his late 50s, with eyes that seemed to see right through you. He didn't offer fake sympathy. He listened, his face impassive, as I recounted the story, starting with the years of subtle gaslighting and ending with a phone call from Diana. My voice trembled as I spoke, but I forced myself to be methodical, to lay out the facts as clearly as I could. When I was finished, I took out my phone. "She said she would burn my life to the ground," I said, "and I have it on tape." I played the recording. As Diana's venom-filled tirade filled the quiet, mahogany-paneled office, Mr. Harrison's expression didn't change, but I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, a hunter's focus. When the recording ended, he was silent for a long moment. "Miss Vance," he said finally, his voice calm and measured, "in my 25 years of practicing law, I have heard a great many things. That recording is one of the most direct and unambiguous confessions of malicious intent I have ever encountered." A wave of relief so profound it almost made me dizzy washed over me. I wasn't crazy. It was real. A legal expert had just validated my entire experience. "So I have a case?" I asked, my voice small. "You have a case," he confirmed. "Intentional infliction of emotional distress is notoriously difficult to prove, but she all but admitted to it. More concretely, you have a very strong case for defamation, specifically slander per se. She admitted on a recording you legally made as a party to the conversation to a long-term campaign of knowingly spreading false information about your mental state for the express purpose of damaging your reputation and relationships. That is the textbook definition." He explained the process, a cease and desist letter to start, followed by a lawsuit if she didn't comply. He warned me it would be long, expensive, and emotionally brutal. Diana would fight back, and she would fight dirty. "She will try to prove that what she said about you is true," he cautioned. "She will subpoena your medical records. She will depose your friends, your ex-husband. She will use your history of anxiety against you. Her defense will be to put you on trial. Are you prepared for that?" I thought of Diana's smug, triumphant voice. I thought of my brother's weakness. I thought of my mother, trapped in the middle, believing Diana's lies. Was I prepared? "What's the alternative?" I asked. "Let her win? Let her erase me and get away with it?" "No, I'm prepared." "Good," he said, a hint of a smile on his face. "Then let's get to work." The first step was to create a timeline. For the next week, I did nothing but excavate the last 7 years of my life. I went through old emails, text messages, social media posts. With each piece of evidence, a clearer picture of Diana's campaign emerged. The time she accidentally forwarded me an email in which she described me to a cousin as fragile and attention-seeking. The family vacation I was only told about after they had already booked non-refundable tickets. The countless times she would tell a story about me that was subtly twisted, painting my reasonable reactions as unhinged outbursts. Each entry in the log I created was a small cut, but seeing them all together, laid out in chronological order, revealed the truth. I had been bleeding out for years. It was excruciating work. Every night, I would end up in tears, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the betrayal. But every morning, I would get up and keep going, fueled by a cold, hard resolve. Dr. Sharma's words echoed in my head. Document everything. I was building my fortress, brick by painful brick. My support system became my lifeline. Uncle Ben called me every day, a steady, reassuring voice in the chaos. My therapist, Dr. Sharma, scheduled extra sessions with me, giving me tools to cope with the resurfacing trauma. She taught me grounding techniques for when the panic set in, reminding me to focus on my breath, on the feeling of my feet on the floor. "You are not in the past, Chloe," she would say. "You are here. You are safe. You are fighting back." The cease and desist letter Mr. Harrison drafted was a work of art. It was cold, clinical, and devastatingly precise. It quoted Diana's own words back to her and demanded a public retraction and a formal apology, along with a legally binding agreement to cease all contact and defamatory statements. It gave her a deadline of 14 days to respond. The day Mr. Harrison sent the letter, the retaliation began. It wasn't a direct response from Diana's lawyers. It was far more insidious. The family group chat, which had been simmering with gossip, exploded. My cousin Sarah sent me a screenshot of a post Diana had made on her private social media page. It was a picture of her and my mother, smiling serenely. The caption read, "So grateful for family who choose chooses peace over drama, praying for those who are struggling with their demons. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go. It was masterful in its cruelty. She didn't name me, but everyone knew who she was talking about. She was painting herself as the compassionate matriarch, forced to make a hard choice for the good of a troubled loved one. She was framing my impending lawsuit not as a fight for justice, but as an attack, a symptom of the very instability she had invented. Then came the phone calls. My Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, called me, her voice dripping with pitying concern. "Chloe, honey, I heard about what happened. Diana told me you're going through a very difficult time. Please, whatever it is, don't take it out on the family. Your mother is 70 years old. She doesn't need this stress." I tried to explain, to tell her about the recording, about Diana's confession, but it was like talking to a brick wall. "Oh, honey," she'd said, sighing. "Diana said you might be feeling paranoid. She's just so worried about you." Diana had inoculated them. She had preemptively framed any defense I might offer as proof of my delusion. The worst call came from my mother. Her voice was strained, exhausted. "Chloe, Mark told me you've hired a lawyer." "A lawyer? Against your own family? What are you thinking?" "Mom, she admitted it," I pleaded, my voice breaking. "She admitted to everything. I have it on tape. She's been lying to you for years. She's been trying to turn you all against me." There was a long, weary sigh on the other end of the line. "Chloe, Diana has been nothing but a wonderful daughter-in-law to me. She takes care of me. She organizes everything. She admitted she was harsh with you on the phone, but she was under a lot of stress, and she said you provoked her with that cake. She is willing to apologize for losing her temper. Can't that be enough? Why do you have to tear this family apart?" Tear this family apart? The family was already shattered. I was just the one holding up a mirror to the pieces. But my mother couldn't see it. She was caught in Diana's web, a comfortable, well-tended web of perceived affection and care. To admit I was telling the truth would be to admit her own judgment had failed, that she had been duped, that the woman she had embraced as a daughter was a monster. It was a truth too terrible for her to contemplate. "She wants to apologize?" I asked, a flicker of something dark and bitter igniting in my chest. "Yes, Mark said they both do. They want to sit down, talk this out, as a family, no lawyers, just fix this." It was a trap, a blatant attempt at coercion. They wanted to get me in a room without my lawyer and pressure me into dropping the suit. They would use my mother's health, her happiness, the unity of the family as leverage. Diana wouldn't apologize. She would offer a non-apology, something like, "I'm sorry you felt hurt," and expect me to accept it as a full pardon. "No, Mom," I said, my voice firm. The conversation with my mother was the hardest thing I had ever done, a new rock bottom in a journey that seemed full of them. I felt the temptation to give in, to just make it stop, to have my mother's approval again. The urge was so strong, it felt like a physical craving. But then I remembered Diana's voice on the recording, dripping with contempt. "I will burn your life to the ground." This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about making sure she couldn't do this to anyone else. "There will be no meeting without my lawyer present," I stated, the words feeling like stones in my mouth. "Her apology can be delivered through him." My mother began to cry, soft, heartbroken sobs. "I don't understand you, Chloe. I don't know what's happened to you." She hung up. I slid down the wall in my hallway and sat on the floor, the phone clattering beside me. This was the cost. This was what Diana had threatened. She was turning my own mother against me. The pain was breathtaking. I wrapped my arms around my knees and rocked back and forth, the grounding techniques Dr. Sharma had taught me feeling a million miles away. For a terrifying moment, I thought, maybe they're right. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I should just give up. The despair was a thick, suffocating fog. My phone buzzed. A text from Uncle Ben. "Don't listen to them. You are doing the right thing. I'm on my way." His unwavering belief was the single lighthouse beam cutting through my fog of self-doubt. It was just enough. I took a breath, and another. I would not give up. The 14-day deadline passed in silence. Diana's response came on the 15th day, not in the form of an apology, but a letter from her own high-powered legal firm. It was a blistering counterattack. It accused me of harassment, of being mentally and emotionally unstable, and it formally rejected all claims in our letter. It stated that any lawsuit would be met with a vigorous defense and a countersuit for defamation and abuse of process. They attached a motion to have my entire complaint sealed, citing my fragile mental state and the need to protect the family's privacy. "This is standard procedure for this kind of firm," Mr. Harrison told me over the phone, his voice unbothered. "It's an intimidation tactic. They're trying to scare you into backing down by threatening to make this even uglier and more public. They're betting you don't have the stomach for it." "I do," I said, my voice tight. "I know," he replied. "I've already filed our complaint with the court. The process has begun. Now comes the slow part, discovery." The legal process was a grinding, soul-crushing machine. It moved at a glacial pace, marked by months of waiting, punctuated by sudden flurries of activity. The first major step was the exchange of documents. We requested every email, text, and communication between Diana and Mark that mentioned my name. They, in turn, subpoenaed a decade of my life, my complete medical records from every doctor I had ever seen, my therapy notes from Dr. Sharma, my employment records, my financial statements, even my academic transcripts from college. It was a systematic violation, a legal strip search designed to find any ammunition they could use against me. Mr. Harrison fought to protect my therapy notes, arguing they were privileged, but the judge, a stern, older man who seemed skeptical of my claims from the outset, allowed a partial release of Dr. Sharma's session summaries, redacting the most private details. It still felt like a profound profound invasion. Diana's lawyers now had a roadmap to my anxieties, my fears, my deepest vulnerabilities. The character assassination campaign continued unabated. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years called to offer unsolicited advice or to lecture me about the importance of family. Diana, meanwhile, curated a perfect online facade of a woman besieged by a troubled relative, bravely holding her family together. She posted photos of her and Mark taking my mother on outings, buying her gifts, celebrating holidays I was no longer invited to. Each post was a carefully crafted dagger aimed directly at my heart. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. As part of Discovery, Mr. Harrison had decided to cast a wide net and depose a few of Diana's former friends and colleagues. One of them, a woman named Olivia, who had been Diana's maid of honor at her first wedding years ago, agreed to speak. Her deposition was a bombshell. Mr. Harrison called me the moment it was over. "You're not going to believe this," he said, a rare note of excitement in his voice. "Olivia described a pattern of behavior from Diana that is identical to what she did to you. She said Diana has a history of identifying a target in a social or family circle, isolating them, and then systematically turning the group against them through gossip and manipulation. She did it to her first mother-in-law. She did it to a co-worker who was up for the same promotion. Olivia called it Diana's social culling. She even had a name for it. Olivia had saved emails from years ago in which Diana had bragged about her ability to manage difficult people by controlling the narrative around them. She described a specific incident where Diana had convinced her entire book club that one member was a compulsive liar, using twisted stories and fake concern until the woman was ostracized. The emails were chillingly similar to the language Diana had used on the phone with me. "This is our turning point, Chloe," Mr. Harrison explained. "This is no longer just your word against hers. We now have a witness who can testify to a clear, established pattern of malicious behavior. This demolishes their defense that her actions against you were a one-time mistake made under stress. This shows it's her modus operandi." The news gave me a much-needed surge of hope. The mountain I was climbing still seemed impossibly high, but now I had a secure foothold. We had evidence that went beyond my personal trauma. We had proof that Diana was a predator. With this new evidence, we had to make a strategic decision. Mr. Harrison advised that we focus the trial on the most provable claims, the slander per se, based on the recording and corroborated by Olivia's testimony. The intentional infliction of emotional distress claim was still viable, but it would open the door for a much more brutal examination of my mental health. He wanted to protect me from that as much as possible. "We want the jury focused on her actions, not your anxiety," he said. It was a difficult choice. Part of me wanted to fight for recognition of the immense psychological damage she had caused, but I trusted him. I agreed to narrow the focus. We would go for the clean kill. The trial date was set for a cold week in November, almost exactly a year after my mother's 70th birthday. The year had been the longest of my life. I had lost friends who didn't want to be in the middle. I was estranged from my mother and brother. My savings were decimated by legal fees, but I was still standing. Therapy had become my sanctuary, a place where I could process the rage and grief without letting it consume me. Dr. Sharma had taught me how to build a mental fortress, to observe my emotions without being drowned by them. I would need every one of those skills in the courtroom. Walking into the courthouse on the first day of the trial felt like walking into an arena. My stomach was a knot of ice. Uncle Ben was on one side of me, his hand a steady presence on my arm. Mr. Harrison was on the other, his briefcase full of the weapons we had spent a year gathering. Across the aisle, I saw them. Diana, dressed in a conservative navy blue suit, looked pale and severe. She projected an aura of wronged dignity. Mark sat beside her, his shoulders slumped, his face haggard. He wouldn't look at me. My mother was not there. Her absence was a statement in itself, a gaping hole in the room that hurt more than her presence might have. The trial was a blur of procedural jargon and high drama. Diana's lawyer, a slick, aggressive man named Peterson, painted me as an unstable, vindictive woman, obsessed with destroying her brother's happy marriage. He used my therapy records, quoting my own descriptions of my anxiety out of context to portray me as perpetually on the verge of a breakdown. "This is not a case about slander," he thundered in his opening statement. "This is a case about a woman who weaponized her own fragility to punish her family for setting healthy boundaries. When it was my turn to testify, my heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. As I walked to the stand, I could feel Diana's eyes on me, cold and full of hate. I sat down, my hands trembling in my lap. I focused on my breathing, on the solid wood of the witness box beneath my fingers. A grounding technique. You are here. You are safe. Mr. Harrison led me through my story gently, methodically. We walked the jury through the years of manipulation, the birthday party, the phone call. I spoke as clearly as I could, my voice shaking at times, but I did not break. I told the truth. Then came the cross-examination. Peterson came at me like a bulldog. He twisted my words, questioned my memory, belittled my feelings. "Miss Vance, you claim my client has been gaslighting you for years, yet you continued to attend family functions, didn't you? You continued to have a relationship with your brother?" "I was trying to keep my family together," I said, my voice quiet. "Or were you trying to remain the center of attention?" He shot back. "You testified that you ordered a 6-foot-tall cake. A 6-foot cake, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Would you say that is the action of someone who shies away from the spotlight? It was the action of someone who was told she wasn't wanted, who was being erased, and who wanted her mother to know she hadn't forgotten her birthday. birthday, I replied, my voice gaining strength. He grilled me about my anxiety, about my divorce, about every difficult moment in my life he could mine for evidence of instability. It was brutal, humiliating, but I held on. I kept my answers short and factual. I refused to get emotional. I looked directly at the jury, hoping they could see past the caricature he was trying to create. I was not the hysterical woman he described. I was a survivor. The turning point of the trial came on the third day. Mr. Harrison called his final witness, me again, for a brief redirect. Then he turned to the judge. Your Honor, the plaintiff would now like to play a piece of evidence for the court. Exhibit A, a phone recording from the night of October 25th. A hush fell over the courtroom. I saw a flicker of panic in Diana's eyes. Her lawyer objected, of course, citing privacy and a dozen other things, but Mr. Harrison had already laid the foundation. The judge overruled him. Proceed. The audio technician hit play, and Diana's voice, raw and full of rage, filled the courtroom. What did you do? The jury, which had looked bored and tired, sat bolt upright. They heard it all. The shrieking, the insults, the admission that she had told Mark to uninvite me. And then, the critical lines. I have told everyone for years how difficult you are. I have worked tirelessly to manage your reputation. I will make sure that by the time I am done with you, not a single person in this family will ever speak to you again. I will burn your life to the ground. When the recording ended, the silence was absolute. It was deafening. I chanced to look at the jury box. Their faces were masks of shock and dawning comprehension. They were no longer looking at me as the unstable plaintiff. They were looking at Diana, and for the first time, they were seeing her for what she was. Peterson's face was ashen. Mark had his head in his hands. Diana sat frozen, her mask of composure finally shattered, her face a terrifying mixture of fury and fear. We had them. The verdict came back the next day. It was faster than anyone expected. The court clerk read it in a monotone voice that belied the emotional weight of the words. On the count of defamation, specifically slander per se, we the jury find for the plaintiff, Chloe Vance. A collective gasp went through the room. We award damages in the amount of $250,000. I started to cry, silent tears of overwhelming, gut-wrenching relief. Uncle Ben's arm tightened around my shoulders. We had won, but the victory was incomplete. On the count of intentional infliction of emotional distress, the clerk continued, we the jury find for the defendant, Diana Clark. It was a bittersweet verdict. They believed she had slandered me. They had punished her for it financially, but they had not legally validated the years of psychological torment, the deep emotional wounds she had inflicted. The legal bar for that charge was incredibly high, as Mr. Harrison had warned. It required proving a level of outrageous conduct and severe emotional distress that was almost impossible to meet in court. Justice had been served, but it was partial. It was a checkmark in a box, a number on a page. It couldn't give me back my brother. It couldn't heal my mother's broken trust. It couldn't erase the scars. After the courtroom cleared, Diana and Mark walked past me. Mark still wouldn't meet my eyes, his face a mess of shame and defeat. Diana stopped. She looked at me, and her eyes were not full of remorse. They were full of pure, undiluted hatred. I hope you're happy, she whispered, her voice a venomous hiss. You got your money, but you have nothing else. Then she walked away, her husband trailing behind her like a ghost. In my next session with Dr. Sharma, I struggled to articulate the swirling mix of feelings. Vindicated, but also empty. A winner who felt like she had lost so much. The legal system isn't designed to heal emotional wounds, Chloe, she said gently. It's designed to assign fault and impose penalties. It did its job. It held her accountable in the only way it knows how. The verdict wasn't for the part of you that was hurting. The verdict was for the part of you that fought back. It was a validation of your strength, not a cure for your pain. She was right. The trial was the end of the war, but the recovery was a journey I would have to walk on my own. The settlement money arrived a few weeks later. After paying Mr. Harrison's fees, it was still a substantial amount. I didn't want it. It felt like blood money, a financial tally of my pain. But Uncle Ben convinced me to see it differently. Don't think of it as her money, he said. Think of it as your freedom fund. She tried to burn your life down. Use this to build a new one. And so I did. I quit my job, where the office gossip had become unbearable. I sold my apartment, which felt haunted by the ghosts of the past year. I moved to a small coastal town 3 hours away, a place where no one knew my name or my story. I found a small cottage with a garden and a view of the ocean. I used the money to live simply, to give myself time to heal without the pressure of a 9-to-5 job. Rebuilding was a slow, practical process. I continued my therapy with Dr. Sharma via video calls. I joined a hiking club. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a scruffy terrier mix whose quiet, constant companionship was a balm to my soul. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I filled canvases with seascapes, with abstracts full of the colors of my grief and my rage and my slowly returning hope. The most difficult part was navigating the new reality with my family. I had won the battle against Diana, but in the process, the family as I knew it had been destroyed. I made the decision to establish a permanent, non-negotiable boundary. I blocked Diana's number. I blocked Mark's. For a year, I had no contact with my brother. It was an amputation, a painful but necessary act of self-preservation. My relationship with my mother was more complex. After the verdict, she had called me, crying. She apologized in her way. I'm so sorry you went through all that, Chloe. I didn't want to see it. It wasn't the full-throated defense I had once craved, but it was a crack in the wall of her denial. I knew she loved me, but I also knew she was caught, weakened by age and her desire for for peace at any cost. I could not let her be a conduit for Diana and Mark's poison. I set firm boundaries. We spoke on the phone once a week. Our conversations were polite, surface level. We talked about the weather, my garden, her doctor's appointments. We did not talk about Diana or Mark. I did not visit on holidays knowing they would be there. It was a distant, carefully managed relationship, a ghost of what we once had. It made me sad, but it also kept me safe. The cost of my freedom was the family I had once known. It was a price I was learning to live with. A year after the trial, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, I received a letter. It was from Mark. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was a single page, written in his familiar, messy script. He wrote that Diana had filed for divorce. The stress of the trial and the financial judgment had shattered their already fractured marriage. He wrote that in the aftermath, he had finally started to see her clearly, to understand the extent of her manipulation. He wrote that he was sorry. It's a word that isn't big enough for what I did, he wrote. I let her poison me against my own sister. I was a coward. I failed you, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know. I read the letter 3 times. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel anger. I just felt a profound, aching sadness for the brother I had lost and the man he was struggling to become. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I didn't write back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Forgiveness was a country I wasn't ready to visit. The story ends, but life goes on. It's been 3 years now since the cake. My life is quiet. It is small, and it is my own. My garden is thriving. My dog, Barnaby, is snoring at my feet. My paintings have started selling in a local gallery. I have a few close friends, people who know my story and love me, not in spite of my scars, but because of the strength it took to get them. Tonight is my birthday. Uncle Ben is here. He drove the 3 hours down the coast, a cooler full of his famous potato salad in the back of his car. We are sitting on my small porch watching the sun set over the ocean. There is no giant 6-foot monument to defiance. There is just a small, lopsided chocolate cake from the local grocery store with a single candle flickering in the center. It's enough. It's more than enough. I close my eyes, make a wish, and blow out the flame. I wished for peace, and for the first time in a long, long time, I feel like I already have it. Well, you made it, all 10,000 words of it. If you're still here, you deserve a medal, or at least a very comfortable chair. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. Honestly, I think the cake part was only about 5 minutes of the story. The rest was just legal fees and emotional damage. But hey, you stuck with it. You're clearly a person of refined taste and immense patience. Since you've already proven your dedication, clicking that little subscribe button should be a piece of cake. A much smaller, less legally complicated cake. Thanks for watching.